Yo, what up, mother flowers? It's Richie the Barber Show. Yo, I'm here with my boy Chris.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Richie the Barber Show. My name is Chris.
And who do we have here?
There we go. There's my camera. That's like where I've been looking into. What up, everybody? It's Mark Harley. Hella Mark Harley if you follow me on IG or anywhere else. It's just mostly used IG. So there we go.
Mark's my brother's name.
Yeah. Whoa,
Your brother sounds dope as fuck.
He is dope. He's a chef. He's crazy.
Chef Mark. What's up?
Yeah.
And I heard you like to eat, and I've heard you have an affinity for food. You're a big foodie, right? Is that correct?
First of all, who'd you hear this from? It's funny if you're just making that, pulling that out of your ass. I think it's obvious that I eat a lot of food, but am I a foodie? I appreciate food. I am like the least picky eater, I'd say. Like if something's good, I don't have any, there's no pretense and there's no like, you know, desire to appear sophisticated while eating. Sure. Right? And I know we talked about before, you're like, hey man, do you like anything? I'm like, tacos.
Yeah,
and you guys actually got me tacos.
Some tacos,
and I'm
dude.
sure they're going to be bomb as fuck. But yes, I do love to consume food.
Neat, well, because I heard you scare people when you eat is what would happen.
Dude, wait a second. You actually did some research because this is funny. Like, this is actually a really good question.
How do you scare people eating? What
I
the
swear
fuck?
to God, and I might have just been taught. It's almost like I feel like you're in my mind. I'm like, didn't I just have this conversation 20 seconds ago? Because I'll describe to people, I'm like, I don't mean to brag about it or anything, but like when I eat, it seems to terrify people sometimes. Like I'll eat so fast or eat so much and I'm not bragging. This is not how I identify. Like, I think it's so cool that I eat so fast. But people have this standard reaction, like, oh my God, you know.
Do they get like horny from it? Be honest. Do women get horny when you eat? Are you
That's a
slurping
good
this
question.
shit? I want to see him eat now. What the fuck?
Yeah. You
Should
know
this
what?
be on the OnlyFans or what?
I do
slurping
think,
tacos?
although, you know, because kind of, yeah, right. Women will kind of be like, oh my God, that's so gross. But like, it turns me on. Like there's always this contradiction. So like, in my head, I'm like, I just know people are kind of like,
right?
if anything, they're going to be like, it's gross.
He looks like fucking Brad Pitt, dude. I'm looking at Brad Pitt right now.
Thank you. That's a very kind comparison.
Just buffer. You're way buffer than Brad Pitt.
Man.
I mean, I'm sorry, Brad Pitt's fucking old now. He's
Brad Pitt's a man. I love his acting.
But his body, though, he can definitely get better, right? Come on, be honest.
But I mean, for like, you know, it's funny. He's one of the, like, if you probably surveyed like 1 million dudes in America between the years like 2000 and 2020, such a high percentage of them, if you said, what would be your ideal body type, to go Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
Oh, okay. Well,
right?
Yeah. That's right.
Now, I don't think a lot of guys realize what that really entails, or it's like he wasn't fucking super jacked. He was just incredibly lean. Yeah. And he also
what about Snitch, though?
Wait, what? Snatch?
Snatch.
Oh, yeah. Hey, he looked great in Snatch, too. Brad Pitt just has...
I think he's buffer in Snatch.
It's possible. I'd have to look at it.
His abs were... And he's like, come on, let's go. You know?
And he's also just a lean guy. Like, I think he's probably never been fat in his entire life. You know what I mean?
Nah.
But also in Fight Club, though, he had like this very like alpha personality. He was kind of like this kind of scary
so I think,
character.
I think
you know?
more so than people going, oh, I want his exact body. They're like, I want to be Tyler Durden because he's the ultimate like alpha male badass.
Mysterious.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Be more like Tyler Durden. You're probably going to get some pussy, you know, for most guys.
So Brad Pitt's getting a little older. Do you think Brad Pitt can physically look as well as he looked in Fight Club? Do you think it's possible? And how can he achieve that? How can he attain that?
If he was to use, I would say it wouldn't take that much. And yes, you could at his age. It's just depending. Most guys, I think his age, because like if you want to use anabolics and you're a guy who's, you know, acting and whatever, it's like, there's going to be a cost to your hair and maybe your face a little bit, but like, you know, I also just don't think he gives a fuck to even do steroids at this point, right? But if he wanted to, absolutely. Because it's just a matter of getting...
What if there's a role that maybe... What if one day he's like, fuck it, I want to be this barbarian guy again, like
awesome
Troy.
If he did that.
Right? Or Troy was... I was watching that last night, actually.
Oh, yeah. I think that's the most jacked he was in Troy.
What if he wants to be more jacked? Then he's got to juice
up.
He could do
that. He just seems to have the personality type where it's like, okay, I'm sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars. I can fuck almost any woman on the planet. But I choose... Like, he doesn't even seem like he has that personality. Like, I don't think he's even like fucking 1,000 girls. He's just like with a hot girl. Like, at any point in his life. And he's like, we're dating and then we're not. And, you know, he just cycles through the hottest women on earth.
Yeah. And so speaking of that, speaking of body count, when there's a guy that looks as good as a guy like Brad Pitt or is as handsome as a guy as Mark Harley.
Yeah.
And is a fucking buff Brad Pitt.
That's what I'm saying. So when he's walking down the street, you know, you'd wonder like how many ladies has Mark Harley been with?
That's a good question. And I would say if you want an honest answer.
Yeah,
no, there's something I always think about. Of course,
Can I guess?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I have to guess.
Yeah.
Let's do a guess. Guess.
Okay. Is it bad if I what if I say
you
too
can
much?
guess whatever you want. There's no don't worry about offending me.
All right,
It's gonna be funny.
300.
Okay, what do you guess?
I'm gonna say
150.
Okay, what do you guess?
That's it? Look, he's a Brad Pitt, bro.
You don't have to think about it.
200, at least 200.
Yeah, but he's but I mean
I would say closer to
Richie's answer.
I didn't keep track. I have to actually with us. I think around 50.
That's
like
it?
50 to 60.
No way.
Yeah. And
Were you married?
Yes.
Are you married now?
Yes.
Okay, well that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
But also I was going to say this is an interesting topic because I always think about this. Like, I know what it's like to be a guy who wants to fuck a bunch of different girls. There's always going to be, for most men, an impediment. Let's say you're a 20-year-old NBA player or something like that. You can fuck as much pussy as you want. Or you're in certain circumstances. Like, I never went out. I never was a part of the nightlife. And also just, I found that even though like you may like as a guy, I may pass a bunch of girls on the street or you're in college, you're like, I want to fuck her, I want to fuck her, I want to fuck her. But like, first of all, you may not have the game to do that or the self-confidence. But then secondly, even if you do, connecting to a woman isn't always the easy, like if I realize like I'm not interested in you as a human, that's actually like, I wish it wasn't, but I'm like, something, man, we can't fucking I can't even talk to you for like a minute. There's nothing for me to latch on to. And that's not, it sounds kind of dickish, but it's like, you just could be incompatible. You know what I mean?
You're not being a dick. You're just being true.
Right. And also I'm weird
right?
too. So like
true?
you might see me on the street as a girl. And I've had this a lot from women. They'll be like, "You're weird," or like that was like, it's like because
there's no way they say that. I don't believe it. You're the nicest guy, and you look like Brad Pitt, and you get this body of you. Maybe you're just maybe they're just scared. They're just like intimidated.
Now it doesn't happen as much. I would say growing up it did.
Yeah, they're intimidated by you.
Now I have more social skills. So like I think as you learn social skills, you don't impart the impression that you don't want to. But I realized I think growing up there was a mismatch of like me being silly or nerdy in a way that maybe you wouldn't expect from this. If you looked at me, my personality might not match that, right? And because whatever metric or whatever assumption you had, that doesn't match up. But again, I'm comfortable with myself now to be like, if you don't like me, I really don't care because there's enough people who I connect with every single day who I love, and I don't need to.
Right, I like that. That was beautiful. But now that we know where Mark Harley stands as far as body count is concerned, I've never asked you, and I want to know.
Yeah. And there's also to finish my thought.
What are you talking about?
To finish my thought, I was going to say like. On the opposite end of it, I've known guys who have like, I remember my roommate in college, like when I'd probably slept with 10 women in college, he was like, oh yeah, I've slept with 60 women and never had a girlfriend. There's usually something else going on there. Like now he was a handsome, charismatic war veteran with like a really deep voice. I'm like, everything about you says I get pussy, but also like, like the addictive behavior, like certain things like correlate to like a lot of one night stands, right? And so like even a guy like Brad Pitt, we're saying he has access to all the pussy in the world. Unless you maybe deal with sex addiction or pornography addiction or something else, like you might not be willing to want to like be a serial like one night stander. And I'm not saying that's wrong with it, like, because most guys just aren't in the position to be like, I'm a rap star, I'm fucking G-Eazy on stage, fucking every, time I want to or whatever. Most guys don't have that access. But, I don't know. So that's the first qualifier is like, wait, okay, you didn't cheat, but do you have any options? That's all I care about.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us, Richie.
What? I told you earlier.
Bro, you're not gonna wiggle yourself out of this one just because Mark added something else in.
Well, now hey, listen. I want what you got, Mark. I want to be married, and I want to be. It's nice to settle down and coming home to somebody you love.
Yeah.
And they know everything about you because. My past, I've been nothing but a fetish. It's like, oh yeah, I fucked a clown, and I'm tired of just being a fetish. I want to cuddle. I got a heart too, and I would have all these one night stands constantly, and they're just throwing me away like trash. You know what I mean? And just like a dog. Just
so you feel like afterwards, like, did you want to turn the one night stand into a 2 or 3 night stand, and then they wouldn't want, or like, was that your actual experience?
I was like, hey, I was nice last night. I was, you want to meet up again or what? They do the fadeaway. Like, I'll see my schedule this week. I'll see what's next week. Yeah. Hey, I'm really busy. I'm doing, I'm working with so and so, G-Eazy and and we're hanging out later tonight, but we're not fucking.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem is too if you use any sort of status to like get a chick, just know that there's going to be another guy with more status or more money or whatever.
Bigger money.
Yeah. So it's like, man, you kind of gotta,
Okay, my body count's probably 300, maybe 300 or 400. Did I say it last time? Was that? I forgot what I said last time.
But now you have a good gauge of what you like and what you don't, right?
Well, yeah, because I'm tanking right now. I have a beautiful girl right now. She loves me. She's an artistic person. I'm an artistic.
So you are in a relationship.
I am in a relationship, but I'm also scared.
How come?
Because it's new.
Right.
And I'm like, fuck, is this going to work? How do I make this work? I get pissed.
Do you have a lot of relationship experience?
Yeah, but it's horrible. I mean, I've been...
So it's all negative relationship experience. Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah.
My last girlfriend, I found her in bed with a girl.
Sounds awesome.
I hate lesbians.
You?
I fucking hate lesbians.
Wait, okay. Because there's so much to back there.
I hate them because they take my girl all the time. All the girls I've dated, they all take them.
Now, your instinct was if you actually found this girl in bed, and I don't know if this is true or not, but like that's an interesting debate. Some guys don't like that. Some guys would consider that cheating.
If you saw what I saw, that was a dude-looking thing in there. I thought it was a dude at first, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, "What?" And if it was a hot chick, you know what? I'm scarred because the first girl I dated left me for a girl. Imagine your first love, your first sex.
No, that's like traumatizing, and that's going to be.
I want a woman, so I'm like, "Fuck." Is it because am I tiny? So now I'm thinking that my dick's small. Now I'm thinking that I can't do it. So all my life, I can't even watch lesbian porn. Wow. I start crying. I just can't watch lesbians.
Yeah.
I hate them because they took my heart away. And they always I got knocked out by a lesbian.
Did you?
Yeah, I got knocked out cold by a lesbian in Long Beach.
How did that happen?
I was checking out
There's so much to unpack. I have to keep a running tab of like all these things, but I'm genuinely
interested in all these. I just checked out this one girl, and then all of a sudden I just boom, get knocked out. I wake up, I'm like, where's my hat? Where's my hat?
Yeah.
And they said, dude, you're outside. You got knocked out by that big boulder. And it's always
what was the lead up to it?
I guess I was looking at her girl dancing.
Oh, okay. So it was like a jealousy thing.
Yeah. They always beat me up. I get beat up by lesbians. I hate them.
Wow. Well, now you say always, but that was one time.
That was one time. And
one traumatizing time.
Well, it sounds like you've had like maybe 3 run-ins with lesbian young ladies, and I'm not sure if that's what they would prefer to be called, but lesbian young ladies. And it doesn't mean you have to dislike them, but do you when you say
when I can dislike whoever I want. I'm hurt. Okay, I'm
hurt. But do you mean quite literally that you do cry when you watch lesbian porn?
Yes. I just can't. I can't do it. I can't watch lesbian porn. I think about the first girl that I've had sex with, and I'm like, my dick just goes, and I start crying. I just can't. Even if I see girls making out, I'm like, that was my girlfriend.
Yeah.
I can't even get.
But for most people, those kind of what age was that?
I was a young boy.
Yeah,
I was a young boy, but I'm traumatized. PTSD.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is if you look back to people's experiences around,
I was a young boy.
It was my
adolescent,
first time. Teenage years, like anything traumatizing that happens, that could potentially stick with you for the rest of your life and shape all your future sexual experiences.
Yes, Mark. You're absolutely right. Mark is right. He's right.
So, what kind of advice do you have, Mark? Mark, you have
so much advice.
Successful. No,
I actually do.
No, because you have a successful marriage and you're a happy guy. Like shine some light.
So I would start.
I'm dying. He's killing me here.
I would have to start on figuring out what your expectations would be the relationship, what your personality types are. I'm a big personality archetype person.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the key to compatibility is just being with somebody who have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs personality type indicator?
Mark,
I know it's a mouthful. Forget it.
Mark, I'm not really that educated. I just want to let you know. I'm so sorry.
It doesn't need to be. No. I'm throwing it out there. Don't feel self-conscious at all. I'm just saying this is what it's kind of like like a more scientific version of astrology, because everyone thinks in these archetypes, like, women love to be like, oh, and he's a Leo and I'm an Aries. Or
so
like,
that's really, it works. I always thought it didn't work.
What I'm saying is that drive as humans to want to categorize people as archetypes, I think that's legitimate, because there are only a finite number of personality archetypes. You can think you're totally unique, but likely you're one of, in this system, it's 16 different types of Myers-Briggs. And that can help you filter out, like, because I'll recognize people, and this, just learning that personality system has actually helped me, like, empathize with people who are different than me. So sometimes you'll take it personally where someone's like, oh, you're doing it the wrong way. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm like, oh, but they're an ESTJ. And like, they're just going to be more concerned about making sure to follow the directions, and I'm not. And that makes them nervous, And likewise with relationships, I think every personality type has a handful of other personality types, maybe 2 or 3, that are going to be optimal for you, And so I would imagine instinctively you're drawn to those kinds of people, but then.
Well, listen, Mark, I changed my life. I did. I spent a year and 3 months. I had no drinking, no crazy drugs and all this stuff. And now I finally can have a relationship because I was always drunk.
Right,
and I would say
that would be really difficult to be emotionally available.
It didn't happen right. So now that I'm clean, it seems I'm more driven. I'm working out constantly every single day, body, mind. I'm doing a lot of research. I'm trying to study a lot, much as I can, and understand things. And I think that's way better than my lifestyle before.
Yes, and so all those things sound extremely positive, and then if you can add a healthy relationship on top of that,
you're golden, bro.
Like you are. It sounds like you're setting yourself up for success, because if you were like, anytime somebody's like, yeah, man, like I'm just like unhappy with myself and I'm drinking and blowing this girl, it's like, well, the girl isn't the problem.
The drinking, bro.
Like there's all these things underneath that, and even getting in shape, it's like it's really difficult to do with the drinking problem. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But I subsidized it. I said, you know what? I'm going to work out so hard that I'm going to I can't even get off the couch because I just worked out so much.
Correct.
And everybody be calling me, yo, Richie, let's go to the bar. I'm like, dude, I'm fucking tired. Fuck you. But I would do it every single night. That was my therapy.
Yeah.
And I love working out because it's a positive place. And most people think, oh, everybody's judging me. Everybody's this. No, dude, everybody's like so positive.
Isn't
and they want
funny?
you to get the gains. I thought it was the opposite.
Most people do.
You know
but
what I mean?
I'd forgotten about it because, the first time I was in a gym, was so many years ago. But I forget what it's like to be, you're 30 and you've never worked out before. The gym to you is this intimidating place where everybody's going to be looking at you and thinking you're doing shit wrong. Yeah. And you're going to look at a guy like me in a fucking tank top with a pump and be like, oh, that guy must be this. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'll be the beneficiary of people telling me later, oh, I thought this about you. But most of the time, I'm not thinking about what anybody else thinks of me. But if anybody comes up to me asking for help, I couldn't be more excited to. And most big guys would be. If you went up to a big guy in the gym, you're like, hey, man, like, what's your favorite exercise for arms or something like that? Or what's like, most of the time, they'd be happy to share it with you. And if not, they're a dick.
This is actually true. This is very, I've seen it before.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
Mark is definitely right.
And so, if you can get over the intimidation aspect of it, it is like a church in the sense of like people go not just to work out, but because it's a positive community. Every single person went to the gym and made that decision for themselves that day to be healthy and be positive and like put aside whatever bullshit they're going through to show up. So it already filters people who are like probably going to be in a good mood. And if they're not in a good mood right there, in 20 minutes, they probably will be, once they start the workout. So, and then also what you said about collapsing at the end of the night, I always try to tell that to people. I'm like, if you're dealing with whatever, anxiety, work out. Depression, work out. So if you're not pushing yourself, like do something that makes you so tired, you have to collapse, and tell me how you're an insomniac after that, right? Or tell me how you're like work out till you throw up and tell me how anxious you are. If you're not going to be thinking about anything else besides,
no, dude.
So
Mark, Mark's a genius.
Mark is a genius, but I want to
positive man. Where'd you find this guy?
He's fucking awesome, dude. I heard.
Thank you.
I heard about his work through the Fighter and Kid and through Brendan Schaub's like the Thick Boy Network, and that's when I first came to know about Mark Harley, and I was like, dude, he's a really fucking cool dude.
It's a cool name, Harley.
A fucking badass name.
Thank you.
But I did want to ask you that people when they start going to the gym, right, they may feel slightly discouraged because they might, get their best gains at the first, 3 months of working out, right? And then maybe they might plateau. They don't know what to do. What do you think about like steroid use? Do you think that there's any benefit to that for the standard person?
No, I'm totally open about my own steroid use and advocating it for other people. Like, I would not openly advocate for people to use steroids. I would say I openly advocate for you to use YouTube and research as much as you possibly can. I'm somebody who, before I started, I did a cycle when I was 18. I did a few cycles in college, then went completely natty until my mid-30s and did TRT again. But for those years when I'm 18, I'm sitting at a fucking computer like researching everything I can to figure out what an appropriate cycle is, what are the side effects, what are this and that. Now I'm still a dumbass 18-year-old, and if I could talk to myself now, I'd be like, dude, wait till this time, whatever you think you're getting out of it, it's just not worth it for XYZ. So I try to be that person. Guys will hit me up who are either in their teens or 20s asking about steroids, and I'm like, you could do it, and you could do it in a safer rather than dangerous way, and I could advise you, but like my overarching recommendation is always just wait till you're 30. You know what I mean? Like, and also, even if you are 30, for most guys, it's like, let's get the big blocks in place. You know what I mean? Like if you're, what's that analogy of like filling up a glass with like, the boulders and then the pebbles and then the sand and then the water, it's like the big things are like, do you work out? Don't hop on steroids if you don't work out, right? If you are in that scenario you described of like you're a few months in and the gains are simply decelerating, and if that's the only thing that you're worried about, you'd actually be in a pretty good position, because I'm going to assume you're tracking everything so rigorously that like you can graph that your performance is stalling. You know what I mean? Like, you're in a pretty good position. And then you can ask yourself these questions like, am I getting enough protein? Am I getting enough rest? Am I optimizing these simple things? But you still have to do it. It's like, yeah, you're not going to grow on 4 hours of sleep a night. You're not going to grow from, eating only 50 grams of protein every day or whatever. It's just impossible. So like, once you check all those things and you do that for a few months and you're still not satisfied with the results, or you do it for a year or whatever, then my recommendation, and then you come to me and go, I'm intent on doing this. Then my next step would be have an exit strategy for yourself where you go, if I don't like getting on this minimum effective dose for testosterone, that's like 150 milligrams a week, right? You could take 150 milligrams of testosterone and like 2 IUs of HGH every day. That's like a classic like hormone replacement for older guys cocktail. You'd get phenomenal results. And then if and that could last for years and years, just that little, boost. Yeah. Like if you're doing everything else right, that can go a very long way. Now, if you're trying to, if you're Brad Pitt, who's in his 50s and going for a movie role, you might want a little more, right? Or any of these guys in Hollywood, like, it'd be interesting to see what The Rock actually takes. Obviously, he's a gigantic man and has every other element of his life dialed in.
It's like genetic for him almost too.
No, he's dead.
I mean, yeah, he has better genetics or not, but absolutely, he's on a large amount of anabolic steroids over the course of a long period of time.
How do you know?
It would be impossible for him to have not been. I would just say it like that.
Damn,
because there's ways you can measure that scientifically. Like you can say like, the amount of lean body mass that this person has accrued at that height, at that age, for this amount of time. Like, there's ways to like sort of, not that you can say this is impossible. You can say, if that were to have occurred naturally, it would put you like in the stratosphere of Superman. Like unlikeliness, right?
He'd be Superman, bro.
Yeah. So I think now, can he talk about that? No, but he's put himself in that position where he has to actively lie about his steroid use. And so
has he done it yet or no?
Oh, he'll be like, he's one of these guys. I did in college and didn't work for me, steroids didn't work for me. I didn't get high, like one of those. It's like, okay, you're the one person on planet Earth.
Like Obama did when he said that, right? Obama said I never got.
Or like, Obama I think actually said he got high. Bill Clinton said he didn't inhale.
Obama said, I think he said he did cocaine.
Cocaine
is what he said.
He did, yeah. He made loose reference to it in his book. In his book, yeah, he did.
You did say that.
Yeah,
I want to get his book now.
And I think that's cool. That he was.
I love black men. That's why I got this shirt, bro.
There we go. So yeah, I think
that shirt. What do you think of that?
Yeah, we're discussing this shirt. We're discussing this shirt earlier. It has the gut punch of racism. You're like, oh my god, like I just saw a racist shirt, but then you're like, wait a second. He's saying he loves black men, not that he hates them.
I really do. Michael Jordan. You don't love Michael Jordan?
I love. Well, I'm not the biggest Michael Jordan fan, but
Kanye West.
I believe yes, I love Kanye West.
You love Kanye West?
I would say so.
What do you think about Kanye West?
I think Kanye West. I think that a guy like Kanye, I think his IQ level's at 135, and I think for the average person, I think it's about 98 to 100. And so I think because of that, because of the way he processes his thoughts and information, may be a little different, and it can seem scary and erratic for most people because they can't understand him. So I think if you're a genius, like if you're at 160, 180 IQ, they probably think he's a fucking idiot. So he's not a genius.
That's probably the best way I've heard. That's the best because you're actually using IQ points, and I think that's what like you have to be that specific almost. You're like, yeah, there are people I know I'm not like of a certain like I know where I am, but you go like, have you ever talked to somebody with a 160 IQ? Like they're the sixth grader who's talking to you about fucking quantum physics. You know what I mean? Like
sure,
it's an insanely intelligent individual, and I get like when you're putting him on that scale, like 135 or 140, it's like that's a very, very, very smart person.
Yes.
Who, if they're prone to mania, will consider themselves a genius.
Right.
But statistically speaking, maybe not
a genius.
But I know what that feeling of like mania is. I'm like, oh, I can relate to this. Being like, I had the best fucking idea I've ever had.
Sure.
And sometimes those ideas are really good. And if you get a lot of positive reinforcement, like, no reason for anybody to tell you suck or that you're not a genius. You know what I mean? What do you mean? I just made billions of dollars off my mind. So tell me I'm not a genius, So I have sympathy for that. But ultimately, I then also, as specifically as you can point in his IQ stuff, I can go, here's how you're exhibiting symptoms of a manic episode, And most people don't even know what that's like, right? So you realize like people will talk about bipolar or he's mentally ill. I'm like, if you throw around a blanket term like mental illness, is he schizophrenic? Does he have borderline personality disorder? Is he suffering from an anxiety? Like, what do you mean by that?
Okay.
Similarly,
depression. Yeah, they were always depressed, like long period of time, long. Yeah.
Okay,
and that was a cycle of me recognizing most of the girlfriends that I've dated were like that. Like just very, depressed. I'm like, what the hell? Why am I dating all these depressed?
Crazy,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, but then again, why is because I was drinking and I was in that zone.
100%.
Because alcohol 100%. Is depressant. So like, what? Misery loves company, probably.
Correct. And if that's your recreational activity, you know what I mean? Like that's right. It's not constructive. You're only if your form of socializing and community and happiness is drinking. Well, it's not like you can just be like, I'm going to drink 2 shots a night for the rest of my life.
No,
you're going to build a tolerance. You're going to, have to up that cost.
Wait a second. So are you a drinker anymore?
I never really was.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
but you know the difference between the people that can't even handle it.
Oh, yeah. I have alcoholism in my family, so I'm lucky that I wasn't like I don't have that particular affliction. I love drugs of all kinds, and I've drunk a lot. I've done most broad categories of drugs. And I love I'm a big fan. I would say of psychedelics.
Yeah. What about the mushrooms, baby?
I love mushrooms. I love LSD.
DMT. I did DMT.
Yes.
I got it tattooed right here. The night or the day after I did it.
After I did DMT, I was just like, that was astounding. I had no words. I was trying to describe I would describe it almost as it's like a condensation of like a 12-hour LSD trip into whatever, a few minutes. That's one way to put it, but it's not, that doesn't even do it justice because I think it's a unique psychedelic experience in and of itself, but I was flabbergasted by it.
Well, a lot of people
in a positive way.
A lot of people say that they'll share similar stories.
Yeah.
Of when they use DMT. So, did you see any beings that didn't seem like they were from this planet?
I don't think I got that high, to be honest. It felt more like I was the analogy was I was riding the Silver Surfer on psychedelic imagery, and I felt like I could hear people talking about me. They're like, oh, look at Mark right now. And I'm like, they don't realize
that's,
I'm zoning out like this. And you would think that I'm having this crazy, but I am, but also I had to be still because I felt like like if I leaned this way or that way or moved, it would like upset this thing that I was writing on.
Yep, that's exactly.
And like it almost like the balance was like positive, and it was like, oh, if I dip towards this, like I could have this like really quick, sudden, like
you want to say
negative psychological experience.
You're going fast, bro.
But yeah, it just felt like it was like I'm zooming through something.
Did you hear a noise like? I heard that noise. Dude, I swear.
No,
I heard that. I did.
But
Can you do it again?
It was like.
But the psychedelic
and there's all these
overlay,
fucking crazy like. What is it? Like scope shit? Like
right. The first thing you notice is like that somebody goes, oh, it turns everything like into an 8-bit world. What I think a more nuanced way to say is like the geometry of everything, like the psychedelic geometry. That's really what we're responding when he's like, oh, this thing looks cool. It's like psychedelic geometry.
Colorful
looks fucking cool, and everything like around you gets, it'd be interesting to see what like this turns into, but it's like,
no, but everything's moving though. Everything's
by
moving.
The colors, and it turns your surroundings into this like beautiful, like 3-dimensional sculpture. You feel like you're like, oh my god,
thing where you like that or the telescope.
Kaleidoscope.
It's like that, but you're going in a tunnel fast as fuck.
Right.
Woo, and it's just, you're like, oh shit, I guess I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
So
this sounds very like physical and terrifying. Did it feel good, or was just like a?
Yes, I would say that, because that's the other thing too.
There it is.
When people like, there's so much misinformation about psychedelics, and I've had negative psychedelic experiences, but in this instance, it was euphoric to me, and like, not that I needed to have anything profound happen. It's like, what did you learn? It's like, I didn't learn shit, but I saw a bunch of beautiful stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like it was like if you condensed like all the beautiful images of the world into like a 5-minute experience, it felt like something akin to that, where I'm like, holy fuck, like I've never been smacked in the face with a fire hydrant of cool shit before. Quite like that,
True, yeah.
And so that was positive, but I was aware that like I was tinkering. It's like, if I stepped off this or allowed my brain for a second to be like, but why do you hate yourself so much? But what about that time in 5th grade where you peed your pants or whatever it is? It's like, I know I was one step away from being like, you can turn this into, a fucking horror show if you want, of imagery. I assume it felt like that, where you're like, I'm like, again, on the skateboard, I'm going down the hill, and it's like, one misstep and I'm going to fly into the car.
Because recently I got really, really high. Like I just smoked some weed, and I got super high, dude. So I was so high. I was uncomfortably high. Like where like there were people on the dining table, and I was like, oh no, I don't know how to talk anymore.
That's the word. No, I've been there
left
so many times. That's why I don't really smoke weed anymore, because of things that I'm like I can't be too high and be the most awkward large human you've ever fucking seen.
And so go back to the bedroom, and
it's like, on top of that, it's like, I'm sorry, like I'm just taking up space, being crazy in my own head,
And so I go back to my bedroom, and I set this yoga mat down. And I start like doing stretches and start like closing my eyes and meditating. And then I saw like myself like in like a I was made out of wood. I was just like closing my eyes meditating. I saw myself made out of wood, and like I was on a painting that was also made out of wood on a canoe.
That's actually dope.
All of it was wood, and then it flipped over, and then it became like me again. Wow. And then there was this recurring.
That sound like, and also, weed is a psychedelic. People don't realize this. It's a psychedelic.
Is it
100%.
Oh god, big black thing in my eye.
And if you get high enough, you'll see psychedelic
men.
shit. Most people just don't get that high, but it's like, I took a microdose of LSD this morning.
Wait. How do you do it? Can you tell me?
Yeah, I rip off a little tab.
Okay, so the tab, right?
Yeah.
Now I was thinking, some people say
I actually have some I can give you guys.
Really? Oh, dude, I'm so down. I love microdosing.
Yeah.
But
the first thing you notice is a mood enhancer, and before you so it's like weed like affects your mood. Before, if you get high enough, you're gonna start seeing some crazy shit. But most people are not at that level because it's so.
No, that's microdosing.
But then something else happened. So then there was this recurring like memory that I've had for years. I don't know why it kept replaying in my head for years and years and years. And it was when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I was at school, and there was his teacher's aide, and then he looked really tired. He's like, dude, he was like 20 years old.
Yeah,
like a teacher's
and this
aide.
really happened.
Yeah, it's really happened.
Okay.
And so this guy's like, dude, like I had such a long night. He probably was hungover, and I was like, dude, you should just splash some wine on your face, and maybe you'll feel refreshed. You'll feel a little bit better. And he's like, you know what? I'll do that. And he did. And then he's like, dude, I feel better. And I don't know why. It seems arbitrary, right? Like, why would I keep replaying this in my head? And then when I was really high that day, when I was meditating, I thought like, wow, like I keep replaying in my head because that's the first time I felt heard. like somebody like listen to something that I have to say. You know what I mean?
That is really profound.
Like it was bizarre, and I was like, oh my God, like I feel so like in tune with myself.
But I was waiting to see where this was going,
high as fuck.
and that was a great. That was.
He was high as fuck. Damn, I'm fucking thinking about this shit.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
So I think first of all, if you've never smoked pot before, it's like that would be like I'd be like, listen to this story. Like that's like not all of being high, but part of it is like that thing where it's like you have like an aha moment that's about a memory or something that's replaying that you like, it'll keep replaying. Cause I've had these moments before. I'm like, why am I'd get used to get high. I remember I was like, and I'd get angry over a certain time period. It wasn't like every time I've gotten high, but like for 6 months, I'm like, I'm fucking angry. Like, and I'm like, oh, cause I haven't like dealt with this thing that I have a resentment towards somebody. And it was like, it's like circling back to be like, hey, like deal with it, deal with it, or acknowledge it in some ways. Yeah. And it sounds like similar for you, where it's like, you needed to like have the aha moment, you know, and it is really interesting because you're a kid.
Right.
And probably nobody ever did listen to you before that. Or
yeah, I almost cried with that story. Because that was so touching, right? Wasn't it a touching story? My gosh.
Right. Because then it makes you think, when was that moment for me, you know?
Yeah. Wait, what did you say?
Jeffree Star.
No, he was going to tell us a moment. He's having.
Oh, no. It was making me think about my own, like, I don't know if I could pinpoint that moment without reflection, but like I can place the timeline of, you know, your childhood, like, oh, around here was like when you realize like I say things and other people react to them. You know,
yeah, you know, and it's funny because like I always thought like, you know, like when you wake up in the morning and like you have a song stuck in your head, like why?
Yeah,
like why? Like I haven't heard the song in like 15 years.
Yeah,
but you know, it was kind of like one of those things, like this recurring memory just would pop up in my head, like maybe you know, like maybe like once quarterly, like once every 3 months. Like why am I thinking about that? It happened like fucking like 28 years ago.
But then weed facilitated the actual meaning behind it.
Right? Yeah.
So I feel like the psychedelics can help you do that. It's like. Life will bring you up, this recurring memory will bring you up to the doorstep of some breakthrough, you know, but like, because there's always this hype around like, oh my God, you have to do ayahuasca and like learn shit. It's like, it's possible, but you kind of have to like do other, like you have to be open-minded enough to even like be able to say that sentence out loud, right? Most men maybe might struggle with that, of being like, I didn't feel heard until whatever.
Yeah, right.
You know, so...
I feel good, dude. I feel like you're just saying it out loud, man. But anyway, so you wanted to tell me something. I remember.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. You guys just had
Richie, in addition to drinking, did you smoke weed?
Yeah, I still smoke weed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's California sober.
Yeah, I'm Cali sober, bro.
No, that's, you know what? If that's helping you not drink, I do think like.
No, for real, it is. Yeah.
Drinking a lot it's hard because it's so accepted, but like it fucks your body up.
I drank almost a bottle of whiskey a day. I'm not lying, a lot. I drank so much, dude.
Like a 750 ml.
Dude, I drank so much. I would get tatted and I would just drink the whole bottle. And I would get just be all fucked up.
Yes, and it's just it's hard to do much else positive for your body if that's kind of like your starting point every day. It's like, are you going to give a shit about eating right? Are you going to give a shit about exercise? Are you going to be giving a shit about vitamins or sleep? Or, you know, it's like that becomes the priority. Getting that alcohol in your system every day was the priority, I assume.
But I wanted to better myself, so I was like,
that's awesome.
And then the only way to do that was to get back in the gym and feel good, you know, and take on life. Like it was weird. Taking life clear was like weird.
Right,
I'm like,
because then you actually have to reckon with all the emotions that life throws at you.
Because every time I get in a fight with a girl, I'll be like, fuck, I just go to the bottle. You know? I'd be like, I can't fucking drink. Fuck this bitch. And then I'm like, what do I gotta do? So then I go and I just pump it. Get in the gym. And I was like, and I do it so much until I'm like, oh, I'm tired, but it feels good. Right. And I'm going to get bigger. Yeah.
And so gains, I wish that people like, it's hard to force that realization upon it. Like I can describe it to you. It's like, no. If it feels good, right? There's a point where if you work out hard enough, it will be better than any alcohol or anti-anxiety pill that you can have. And then you can keep going back to it the same exact way. And it actually becomes easier to get that like certain feeling that you're going for. And you know, it's less stressful and more efficient over time versus you need more alcohol or more substance, you know, to numb yourself to these things. So That's a great little analogy. Like I wish people would listen to when they hear you go like, I was drinking this much a day, and then I realized I had to stop, and in its place, I did essentially working out. I think to me can cover so much of that, and I think you hear that a lot in like. I'm a big Eminem fan, so his addiction recovery involved like a lot of running.
Oh, really?
He'd run like obsessively, but I'm like, yeah, makes sense. But you can get high. Like if you're running 16 miles a day, which he was,
dude, you get high as fuck.
Yeah,
real, dude.
Yeah,
it is real. I mean, even Mark says
8 miles at a time.
What makes you high? What's your favorite workout? What's the one that gets you really like fucking? Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's one style that I like to work out with, like. Simply, I kind of take a CrossFit approach if I'm doing this, but it's like if I have 20 minutes in a gym and I want to fuck myself up and put myself on the floor, I'll do like a circuit style workout with full body movements where it's like I'm doing something for like pressing, pulling, abs. You can make a full body circuit out of like 5 motions, right? You're pressing something, you're pulling something. So it's a push-up, a pull-up, a crunch, a squat jump, a kettlebell swing, right? That covers your whole body. If you do all those things in sequence, take a little break, do it again, take a little break. If you're going hard enough or you have the right weights or the right pair of dumbbells, you're going to fuck yourself up really quickly. You're going to get cardio and resistance training. Mm-hmm. I love those types of things where it's like, I got 20 minutes, like put me on the floor, because then it's not like I'd almost, that versus running a marathon. Like shit, I've run 13 miles before straight just to run the block, like just to say I can do it. But like, and I like that too. I like running. I like running up hills because it's kind of like you have this conversation with yourself. I have this one hill that I run from Ventura to Mulholland from Sherman Oaks. So it's like this 2.2 mile like climb. And my goal is it's like steep enough where if I don't stop the whole time, I'm like, by the end of it, I'm like, my self-talk is like, fuck this shit. Like I'm actually saying it out loud. I'm going, fuck this. Because the incline gets to, it's like, your heart rate's at about, for me, it's like 170 to 180. It's uncomfortable. Okay. I'm pushing myself. The final part is a steep incline. So you're like lactic acid's building up and you're like, you can see the end, but then you tap it and you're like, and I'm looking out over LA. It's like that from nothing to 20 minutes later, you're like, yes, I did it. That's a pretty great feeling. I don't think you need to complicate it any more than that for just a mood. Like, forget bodybuilding and any, like, if you want to look a certain way, sure, it's a little trickier. If you just need to feel a certain way, run up a fucking hill, until you can't anymore.
Yeah, sure. Whenever I'm feeling like oh man, like I don't really want to work out or do something positive today, I always put on like David Goggins.
Yeah,
he has great inspirational talks. Right now, motherfucker can run, dude.
Yes,
dude, I'll send you some videos. Great fucking dude. But there's
Did you listen to his audiobook?
I have not listened to. I just watched his YouTube videos when people have like compiled like some of his best like motivational speeches. He just runs. Yeah, and he runs. He's a black dude. Yeah, and
Joe Rogan.
He was on Joe Rogan. Yeah, and I think that's how I may have heard of him actually.
Yeah, that's how I heard of him. Like, and around that time, because I remember he brought him in. He was like doing pull-ups like in the in the waiting room or something. Like he set the record for pull-ups in 24 hours. So it's like thousands of pull-ups. The main thing that you realize is like, it's not even about the amount of pull-ups you can do. It's that your hands start to peel off.
Damn.
Almost no matter what you do. Like you can't, there's like not an efficient, like, short of even wearing gloves, it's like that'll wear on your skin. Like your skin is peeling off your hands if you do 3,000 pull-ups in the course of 24 hours. You know what I mean? Like, so his thing and what he's most known for is like, putting his body like not training for a marathon and then just going to like run it the next day or whatever, which is actually less impressive. I think it was like 100 miles. He did something crazy where it's like the bones in your feet are breaking. You're shitting yourself. Like he has pushed himself to the absolute limits of death, very close to death, just physically exercising. I don't think everybody needs to do that, but it helps you recalibrate, like, oh, I'm just being a pussy. Like, oh, this hurts and I'm stopping. Like, look at David Goggins.
Right.
Like,
he ran so much that at the end of it, he pissed blood.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, David's a very, inspirational, man, right? But there's also another guy who's a very inspirational man who I wanted to talk to you guys about, and it's Andrew Tate. I mean, how do you guys feel about this young man, Andrew Tate? He's in hot water right now.
I'm a big fan of him. And
who's Andrew Tate? What do you mean? I don't know. Who's it?
No, do you not know him? That's very. If you're saying right now on January 11, 2023, you do not know who Andrew Tate is, like that's not something for me to make fun of. That would be actually something to like. We need to get an award and be like, you have have escaped the Matrix, like what? Andrew Tate recommends.
He was the #1 searched person. Most people are like looking up porn and all kinds of other stuff. He was the #1 searched person online. Now, Andrew Tate.
Richie, do you go on social media a lot?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
What do you do?
Because this is also, are you being he's being sincere, right? Okay.
What the fuck did he do?
I'll try. Who wants to give the synopsis? So Andrew Tate in the last year I would describe him as this. He's in the YouTube manosphere, right? So generally that's a word that I would use to describe people who are
He's a YouTuber
giving advice or presenting themselves as a role model for men generally. Young men might respond to that message more than others, but it's for all men. It's saying that it's okay to be alpha, it's okay to be strong, it's okay to get rich, it's okay to fuck bitches.
What does he do? He's a real estate guy?
I'll tell you. his rise to fortune, he was a world champion kickboxer.
Okay.
His story is like, I had all these girlfriends, I had the belts, but like I really wasn't making that much money. And like I think he was in debt to somebody, like let's say he's 20 G's in debt. And he was like, I'm gonna lock myself in a fucking room with my brother and like not emerge until I know what I'm gonna do. He came up with the idea to do cam girl stuff from his from wherever they were living. I think they were in England at the time, but he's moved his operation to Romania. He's English and American. Oh, yeah, so he has like a hybrid accent.
Does he talk English or what?
He talks like this.
No way!
Have your friend pour you a glass of sparkling water. Somebody says, ugh, bubbles. Never speak to that person again.
That's how I don't know who this guy is. I want to
bubbles. So he's like, he first appeared on like the first time I heard him about it, I think it was on the Your Mom's House podcast, because he was like, he has all these clips of himself saying like, no, a bitch is supposed to clean up after me, like you're gonna make me a sandwich, like that kind of like,
oh, he's like that
hyper alpha energy. And
does he have a beard?
No.
Is he old? What is this guy?
No, he's a guy in his 30s who's about my height. I think his dad is like, he Mexican? He looks like he's ambiguously raced, like a quarter black, I think maybe, but like he's not white, he's not what he's like, a tan sort of good looking guy who's tall and athletic. He has come to be.
Is he buff?
Yes. The reason that he became so prominent and why we're shocked that you don't know him is because he successfully used a viral marketing campaign to market himself, which is like affiliate marketing. So he opened up this online course, this Hustlers University.
Are you being serious?
I'm being serious. So
Hustler University.
So he opens up and goes Hustlers University.
Yeah.
When I started noticing, because I was very quick to be like, he's doing something here, because I would start to get recommended Andrew Tate videos. Yeah, it was crazy. And you go, this can't be coming. You go on YouTube. There's a time where you're on YouTube, I'm on YouTube, and I already kind of watch stuff where it's like male self-improvement stuff, like dating. That all relates. It's like they know if you're watching the Rational Male YouTube channel, you're also or you're watching the Fresh and Fit podcast, like where it's kind of like man issues. You're gonna be recommended if you hashtag it right. This stuff, but I go, wait a second. This isn't his YouTube account. It's 1,000 different people blasting it out, because he goes, you can take my Hustlers University course and I'm going to show you how to make money online no matter what your situation is.
Oh, it's a pyramid scam.
Not quite. And I'd be very careful to differentiate, because your investment into it doesn't, like, you don't have to get your money out by convincing others. You're incentivized to get other people to buy into it. And you can do that. He goes, here's all the footage of me talking, and you can use that however you want to make your own YouTube channel. And if you link to my show, you can have all my content, mix it up, cut it however you want, put music on it. So you would see 1,000 different channels and be like, Tate, and he's got all these funny one-liners and shit. Like, so if you take him, he's a really smart, articulate guy, but out of context, he sounds like a raving misogynist to some people. I'm like, oh, he's just being funny, you know? Like,
do you like him?
I like him. I think he's hilarious. I think that he's funny. He's also saying a lot of the things that your father should have probably told you.
Correct.
No, so Andrew Tate.
Yeah, there's this.
I should know. He's like my father.
No, I'm saying that he's saying things to young men
he's
that your dad should have told you.
Yeah, like
so he's my father. So
he's like your digital father, I guess.
So how come you never told me about my digital father? What the hell? I could have learned a lot from this guy.
Yeah.
Is he good? Is he bad? What the hell?
Well, okay. So
is he a clown? What the fuck?
The current controversy
is he funny like a clown?
No, he's not funny like a clown. He's funny like an asshole. It's funny.
Like a big asshole or a little asshole, big butthole.
I mean, I would say he's you might describe him as a loud asshole in certain contexts, but I would honestly consider him to be a very classy individual. It's like that the character that he's playing. Like that's, how anybody gets attention. If you market yourself correctly, it's like, hey, I'm a carnival barker, like this, and then I'm drawing you in. But like, he had an hour-long conversation with Pierce Morgan, and to me, owned Pierce Morgan intellectually because he's smart and he plays chess, and he's like a high IQ guy who's figured out a way to enrich himself, and now to the point where he's in Romania. He was recently arrested for human trafficking.
No, the same guy we're talking about?
So the controversy, everyone's discussing. We're waiting on pins and we're like, are these charges going to be substantiated? Because similar things have happened before. Because if you're that brash and you're that loud and you're that controversial and you're in a country that is corrupt like Romania, but you're talking about how Romania is corrupt, they might not be that happy.
Is he going to get the death penalty or no?
So I believe he's currently he's on a 30-day
he's in prison?
detainment. And
no way! I never heard about this
it's
guy.
like, so we're in the middle of we're waiting to see what kind of charges they can substantiate, because I've just based on previous things that they've raided his house before because some guy a guy had a girlfriend at his place and she's like, they're making her stay there, and it's like, oh, interesting, she's on video like picking up the pizza at the front door and going back inside, so she could have left at any point. He attracts enough attention and has enough people who would like to see him go away completely that it's feasible to imagine that somebody could be attempting to frame him for this, but if there's evidence that he did this shit, it just doesn't seem likely.
Do you think he did or no?
I don't think he did, because it would be predicated on him needing to traffic women for his the webcam business. He doesn't need to do that anymore.
It could be as far as for example, if somebody were trying to frame Andrew Tate, and let's just say hypothetically, they took a young lady who's maybe 17, and legal age of consent in Romania is 18, I believe. Yeah. Right. So if she had fake documentation posing herself as an 18 or 20-year-old, then at that point, that could be considered human trafficking if that's found out she's actually 17.
Right.
And that could be how someone could be trying to frame the guy. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I'm just speculating.
I think you're with me. We're like, look, I can't say when I'm like, but it's like, it just doesn't make sense. I'm like, this guy's forcing women to everything he's described seems pretty and that's how he made his fortune. I think he's been making so much money from this Hustlers University thing. I have to imagine that made a tremendous amount of money to the point where I don't think he runs and you think he's the one out of his house doing this webcam. I don't know. It's a little hard to believe, and it's easier for me to believe right now that there's something else going on in a corrupt state like Romania.
Okay. Like what?
Just that people would want to be even just the notion that he doesn't look good as a representative of you're in Romania talking about living in Romania and saying, I can do this and that. You think that wouldn't piss off some government officials who are like, who the fuck is this guy? He's not Romanian. That happens. Because I've read stories of that. For example, if you're in Russia or whatever, I just have a particular fascination with the Russian authoritarianism and kleptocracy and what it means to if somebody doesn't like you who's powerful in Russia, how quickly they can
They'll
like
kill you,
fake
bro.
charges. Not
They'll
even kill you
real fast.
That'd be one thing,
really?
but like they will go through a whole show trial and have you in a cage.
They'll Alex Jones you, dude. They'll do what they did to Alex Jones.
I love Alex Jones.
Me too.
I love him so much.
He's a nice guy.
He's a real nice guy.
No, I really mean it.
I believe everything he says. Everything he says.
But speaking of all this wild insanity, I did want to ask you, because I feel like you were, somehow in the middle of a lot of this controversy and a lot of this very confusing situation.
Yeah.
And I'm referring to the situation with Brendan Schaub, Kalila Khan, and Bobby Lee.
Yes.
So you're pretty close with Brendan, right?
Yeah.
Can you share some insight as to what actually transpired with this whole issue between him and Tiger Belly?
You know, the main takeaways for me, I mean, like looking back and it's like, oh, you know, like the first thing I'll absolve myself of is any sort of like, if you think that I had anything to do with like any like recommendations or people on like Brendan Schaub's handler, I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, you know, we're friends and we talk and I will advise him on certain things if he asks. I think he values my input, like for creative stuff or jokes, or I edit some of his like stand-up clips and whatever. So it's like we're in communication and I give him advice on creative stuff, but like the idea that like I would be involved in any sort of like computer stuff with it, like there's a lot to unpack there, but I would say this. What Brendan has represented to, because he went on Tiger Belly, right? And he talked about these things to his knowledge. And from what I've seen, and I know that he's telling the truth with regards to the information that he was presented. He did not necessarily articulate, like when pressed, like I am listening to this podcast going, oh, you should have said this when you said that. And a smart, manipulative person like Kalila will pounce on that and use it to her own advantage. But I will say this, Brendan's concern for like, and belief that an email associated with Bobby Lee, who I don't think he was involved, and it like the conspiracy theory would be that, is it possible that Kalila used his email to log in and not mastermind, because it kept being portrayed as like, oh, they're masterminding a subreddit group. Sure. That's not what it is at all. It was, my understanding was he was accusing somebody with that email address at that IP location of being one of the top posters in a subreddit group that was mainly devoted to harassing him. That can be a recreational activity for anybody. You know what I mean? Like if you get your rocks off by shitting on Brendan Schaub on Reddit, cool. Like, and if I was presented with information that like, oh, this guy that I thought I was cool with was doing that, like I would have my own way of going about that and going, do I trust the information that was presented to me? First of all, I can't independently verify that, but I know that Brendan was presented with info that he had the sincere belief that somebody associated with that show essentially was potentially like had it out for him,
because Brendan said that he had hired like forensic science people that were kind of doing back end investigating and stuff like that. And I guess what Kalila kept saying is that, where's the documents? Like why didn't he ever present them to me? Like is this real? Like do you have any knowledge on that?
Because the idea that like Brendan pulled out like that out of his ass, right? Brendan's not a computer scientist. So if you were to tell him whatever, or if you showed him something, and same with me, I wouldn't be able to like, oh yeah, well you see that's differentiated from this. Like, and I have, Kalila was smart enough to know that like, oh, if I'm going to press you on this particular issue, it's going to detract from the fact that if there is anything there, it would be the extreme coincidence of having a Bobby Lee at Tiger Belly email address associated secretly with an account that was like one of the moderators of this thing. And there was some other things that I started to see, like this is where my personal conspiracy belief, I go, when I started to I'm just observing this person, right? And at some point she did bring up my name. She was like, oh, your little friend Mark. Right. I got myself involved in this because there was this guy, people message me all the time, and this one guy was like, hey man, big fan, like when did you, and starts asking me questions like, I know this guy's from the Reddit and I know that he's going to post whatever I tell him. And so I used that as a way like to engage in this, what he thought he was like tricking me, you know? And I'm like, no. I'm telling you all these stories that are actually 100% true. If you can find these screenshots somewhere of this conversation, I was like, I'm going to give you the lowdown on this Malik situation of why, because he went around and tried to badmouth Brendan. I'm like, there's some reality to this that like, if Malik looked good in it, he would have already told you all the details. There's a reason he can't tell you all these details. So I go like, here's one thing that I'm gonna be the person who can, like, Brendan didn't ask me to do this, but I'm gonna plant the actual truth of what I witnessed happen, which is that, you know, you were acting like a fucking idiot and you were making all sorts of demands, and then you got, you know, you shot yourself in the foot.
Right.
Then secondly, it was, you know, with regards to like, I think at that time, Kalila and Annie Letterman were like dogpiling on him, and I just thought that was gross as fuck in general, of like, you're trying to like Me Too this guy essentially. And guess what? Joe Rogan agrees. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, like you know, if you were to, you know, I can't say that I know how I know this, but it's like, yeah. Do you think you'll see Annie Letterman on Joe Rogan anytime soon?
Probably not.
I know for a fact.
It's like, how could you do that to someone in your own community is what I'm thinking.
I think these women don't think it through, and they get a little bit too like, you know, it's one thing to have your opinion about somebody, but I just think it's like, and again, Brendan copped up to the stuff. He was like, oh yeah, I messaged Kalila, like, I own up to it. I've worked on that, blah, blah, blah. We've discussed it. Like, to this day, he's like, I'm not hitting on Annie Letterman. I don't know where she might have got that implication from, but asking somebody to walk you to your car or whatever, like, I'm with Brendan going like, it sounds like that might have been a miscommunication, and you took that to go on a podcast where hundreds of thousands of people listen to it and go like, this guy trying to get me his dick, and it's like, ugh, dude, like, it's you're, like, it's like, you're a comedian, not a drama pod. You know what I mean? So like,
it's like, dude, they're acting like he grabbed him by the fucking pussy. It's like he didn't do any of that. Like even if hypothetically the guy was in a relationship and he was married and doing whatever he needed to do, and even if that may have seemed inappropriate to somebody, it's still not like it's not illegal.
Yeah,
he's not doing anything wrong. If they have moral issue with it, then that's fine. But like, what's the big fucking deal? Really?
And I'm totally with you. It's like, look, I'm not saying that, you know, I go, oh well, I just know that he would never do that. And
sure,
but in that instance, it's just like, wouldn't you want to clarify with the person? Like, if I was Annie, I'd go like, hey, like, were you trying to hit on me that night? And you could then clear it up, rather than be like, I'm gonna air this like in front of all these people,
right?
And basically walk them to the worst possible interpretation of that to make you look stupid. And then we're kind of like, so that whole thing is what, you know, kind of like, and also during that time, I think I mentioned something about how this is what really is like almost could have potentially set things in motion, like for Kalila to get upset because I mentioned like that she was banging some other dude in Hawaii or whatever. And that like that got out. It was like, it's, you know, I'm going to forget the exact, like, but like that made Kalila think that like Brendan was going to release, like, you know, but like, oh, no, but I just wanted to like expose you for being a two-faced cunt, you know? And
yeah. So were you the first person to bring that into light? The whole, like, her banging that guy in Hawaii?
But I was the first person, like, from my knowledge, like, cause I don't need other people to tell me like, hey, there's something off about this person, just from how I witnessed her interacting with people. She's very sadistic to Bobby. She, you can find compilations of her attempting to humiliate him. I actually noticed it.
I've seen him.
Yeah. When they came out on the H3 podcast, that was really, I'm sitting there watching it going, look at the way that she emotionally steamrolls over Bobby. He's saying, I'm uncomfortable doing something. Please stop doing this. And she goes, no, don't be a pussy, Bobby. And I'm like, that's classic abusive, manipulative behavior. She's remorseless. I don't think she empathizes with people in a traditional way. I think she has enough emotional intelligence to like pretend and pay lip service to. She'll go, in therapy, we were talking about how we have to I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, you make me fucking sick. And I hope that she watches this because, you know, it's always like this, like, oh, one of the things that we consider when I'm in the Philippines and I came back and Hawaii. And also, I'm definitely not a psychopath if I talk calmly, Brendan. And then when we're on a private conversation, I'm going to scream at you. But, you know, let's just forget that. While I'm on camera, I'm going to seem calm and logical. And then I'm also going to call you a fucking piece of shit loser at the top of my lungs on a conversation and say, you know what? Hey, let's just put this. Right? Because like you can imagine that, right? I'm not painting anything that's crazy.
No, and
this is that person. She's a sadistic, narcissistic psychopath.
She seems kind of scary. If you had to
she is, and there's not just my opinion. Look at her track record. Look at the poetry that people have unearthed online.
I saw that.
She is somebody who, over the course of decades, has not only lied, right? Hey, guess what, Kalila? You're not the swimmer you said you were. You didn't have a D1 scholarship. You weren't a nurse. All these things that you start to realize when you're dealing with people who have personality disorders, they lie about everything. Yes, you are a liar. You did not do the things that you said you have done, right? Yeah. And that's always. Anytime you meet a dark triad personality, sociopath, Machiavellian, narcissist, look at what they say they've done. There's always going to be an exaggeration. And they forget that people keep track of these things. Wait. Oh, but what was your time in college? Or what, you said you were a nurse, or you weren't, or you're almost a nurse, or you completed the school. Or, they'll always trip up, right?
Right.
But you forget that, like, if you're that person, it's like, oh no, people are paying attention. You think you're so smart, and she's gone on record, for example, to call back to our conversation earlier. She has numerous times bragged about her IQ.
Is she smart?
On air.
I'm not.
She's smart. She's
smart.
not a genius.
Yeah, she seems like a.
Right?
She's,
so you're saying, like,
she
when
seems
someone says,
like,
I'm a genius, or like says, I have a genius level IQ, it's like, yeah, something off about you having to say that multiple times on camera to the public.
But is she a genius?
Is she a genius?
Is she a genius?
I would say no. I would say she's intelligent, but also we give credit to people who are highly like psychopathic or narcissistic types. They're good at certain things like manipulating, and then we give them credit for it. It's like, I don't know, because most people don't spend their entire lives manipulating people, so we don't get good at it. Like, don't give them credit for.
Do you think she knows she's doing it?
I know she knows she's doing it.
How do you think she knows?
Yes, she has a documented track record of.
No, it's what I'm saying is that like the way that she talks to like there's been so many.
Does she talk like this?
No, the way that she was always trying to like break down like Bobby Lee almost seemed like she was kind of trying to break him.
Yeah.
And it seemed very conscious. Like she was very consciously trying to do it, but she was doing it very publicly. So imagine what she was saying behind closed doors. No. That's the scary part. That's terrifying.
Not that it was all like that, all one way or another.
But like, was a split personality.
No, but the impression you did of her was pretty fucking good. That fucking got me.
Because you know why?
That was so good,
because,
dude.
Hey, Kalila, you're not unique. And I've known so many people like you, and I know people who try to wield their charisma, or you're a woman who's beautiful, like female.
And you're an actor, right? You're an actor. So
I'm an actor.
You know.
Yes.
Right? By acting, right?
Well, yes.
This is a thing.
But I wouldn't even say like I'm looking at it like, oh, she's putting on a performance. I'm just going, I've known enough people who they think that the thing that they're doing to like put this facade out, it's like they think that all we can see is this. And I'm like, no, I see right behind what you're like. And that tells me so much. Like the fact that you're putting this in my face, because I could, if you have this quality, like if you're a genius, I'm going to find out. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to have to tell me. Or if you're whatever quality, right? If you're really empathetic, you don't have to be like, well, one of the things that I learned in therapy, you're like I'm going to naturally be like, oh, you're a really kind, empathetic person. So you always have to be like, when people like, it's like, here's the platter of meeting you. This is my main dish right here. I'm a genius. I'm empathetic, and I love Bobby Lee.
Right.
Like
Bobby Lee is so talented.
He is.
I love Bobby Lee. He's a great guy.
Most people do.
He's a good comedian.
He is a good comedian, and
I think he's a funny guy.
Kalila's not. So a lot of people kind of like aside, they might look at that situation and go, now, what would she bring to the table? I think that's the broad consensus, aside from,
I think what she believes she brought to the table, and that might be up for debate, but I think what it is that when she met Bobby was still, a relevant comedian, but he didn't have the earning potential that he has with Tiger Belly, and that turned into something much larger and able to monetize that to a level that changed Bobby's life, right? So I think that she takes a lot of credit for that because she helped kind of build that up with him.
I'm not going to take that away from her, but I've also heard her inaccurately, and this is something that narcissists always do, is they'll have this like, and I can think of a very specific example of this is an unrelated case, but like somebody building it like, oh, when I met you, you only had 30,000 followers. I'm like, no, she had 130,000, and you're trying to put them down before you met them to say I built you up higher. I've seen excerpts where she's essentially like, when I met you, you were like XYZ, and then you look into it, you're like, not quite. You know what I mean? Like he maybe wasn't where he is now, but like you're making it seem like he's broke and has no prospects, and you just came in and you're the white knight, you know, saving the entire day and making him $1 million. Like, be realistic, right? So like when people chronically exaggerate in the direction of more grandiose towards themselves, you know, like that's always a huge red flag. So you're right. She probably was instrumental in a lot of ways to getting him a far bigger earning potential, but she's also going to give herself 10 times more credit than she probably deserves, you know?
Yeah.
And like that's a great pattern to observe another. It's like, you seem to really need to take credit for all these things.
Yeah, and the whole thing's a bummer, dude, because, you know, like I've always liked, you know, like Brendan a lot, and it kind of sucks like all the he got for all that shit, and
yeah,
you know,
I mean, like,
and I watched The King and His Sting for, you know, from episode 1, and like I always liked him. Like Brendan always reminded me of like a dude like that you'd hang out with, just like fucking like, down to earth dude.
I've spent a lot of time with him, and you know, I think that he's somebody who would lead with kindness and generosity in most situations. And that's not, you know, the norm and I think people hide it differently in entertainment, you know, like you might be like, oh, like I can think of a few examples where it's like, yeah, that public persona is really well honed to the point you never even think about what that person might be like behind the scenes, but they could be 180 degrees different. So Brendan's one of these guys where I think people will take a lot of stuff he says out of context and be like, he's an asshole, or he's this, or like, you know, because also I think he's pretty good at podcasting, which you're incentivized to like, he's going to argue with people or kind of be a dick to Brian. And that's part of the, you know, whatever. That conversation is separate from, is this a dude who's trying his best to, you know, provide for his family and treat the people around him with respect? Yeah, 100%. And like, if you think otherwise, like, you know, it got misinterpreted a lot of ways. Like what I would have handled it obviously a very different way. If you put this information in my lap and I believed the person who was giving it to me, I would have dealt with it differently. But that does not mean that there's any sort of malice on his end towards, I mean, even Kalila, you know what I mean? Because I think he was just like, you know, I don't think he realized like, you know, what she was capable of doing in response, you know, to some of these insinuations. Because at the time it just happened to overlap with this thing where like they were talking shit about him. And then, you know, it was like, that's what most people don't realize. Like these two separate timelines of like, the Trash Tuesday girls are like talking shit about me. And then independently, like somebody presented me with this information that I have to deal with, you know. It's one of the all-time great like coincidences, I guess.
Right.
But
well, I think that brings us up to about an hour, and I want to ask you one last question too. Since you've been hanging around a lot with Brian and Brendan, if they were both hanging over a cliff, who would you save?
Oh my God! Tell us the truth, bro. Come on.
Man,
the truth.
You know, Brian, you just don't have that many years left. I'm sorry, but you know, it's just, no, I love.
Yeah, man.
I do love Brian so much. You know, I'll tell you this: the pros of Brian. Brian would be a lot lighter, you know, just to, like if we're talking like I have to actually like, tug him up, you know, like fuck, man, Brennan's 250, like 260, like that's gonna be like, what if I, you know, get pulled down, like what am I? Oh yeah, I got you, and then he pulls me, like then we're both dead, like that doesn't make any sense. So that's you know, you gotta
save yourself,
those. There's the practicalities of this situation, but.
That was a good fucking answer, man. And I enjoyed all the impressions that you did today. I had a really good time.
Jake, can you do that thing one last time?
I just wanted to leave everybody with a message of hope and prosperity, because mindfulness practice dictates that when we hear accusations that we're a narcissistic psychopath, we take those in and remove our emotional connectivities to them and decide to process that information in a way that can really help us reflect and become better better people, so that ultimately when we're sadistic to our partners in public, we can explain that in a very diplomatic way and seem like we're not completely batshit crazy.
Dude, I love it, dude. All right, Mark Harley, everyone. Dude, that was rad, dude. Woo! Yeah. Get it. Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it, dude.
Sure
You're fucking
thing.
awesome, dude.
I'm dying laughing.
Off the record, I'll, is that,
I can tell a little bit more.
Oh, shut those down.
If you're actually curious about it.
No,
because,
yeah.
you know.
There was like so much information.
Yeah. So,
You know, like,